everything's been shared. We're live. So exciting. This feels weird. Hey, y'all. So,
Hey.
just probably to do a quick introduction. So, my name is Shaquila Johnson. I work at the Dane County Rape Crisis Center as the multicultural outreach advocate and specialist. We're here today with these lovely, phenomenal Black women here to discuss kind of what they do, how they do it, and drop some knowledge on just like some of the Black women who've been doing such amazing work here in the Dane County community surrounding anti-sexual violence and supporting young Black women and girls on just getting the support and love that they need. So I will have these three women introduce themselves. If they can just give you, if you guys can just say your name, pronouns if you feel so inclined to, and just like what you do with us for people who may not know it. I don't know who wants to start first. But I'm looking at
So my name is Nestic Morris. I use she, her pronouns, and I do outreach at the Wisconsin Coalition Against Sexual Assault. So we don't provide direct service, but we have 60 something member programs around the state that I provide outreach for. And I also do trainings around Black women, sexual assault, Black girls.
they're really good trainings.
I, I am Laleda G, and I'm the founder and president of Defending Black Girlhood.
My name is Dana Pelabon. My pronouns are she and her. I am the co-executive director of the Rape Crisis Center, and I also manage the direct service to the clients in Dane County.
She manages me.
Yes.
As well. So I brought you guys here just because I really wanted to, for Black History Month, once focus on some of like this activism that you guys have been doing. I think a lot of times when people think of social justice work, they don't immediately think of women's issues and they don't immediately think of Black women's issues, and then also sexual violence. And you guys are existing in all three of those arenas. So I just really wanted to take time to just highlight all of those things and highlight that work and have a really good conversation on what brought you to doing this difficult work and just kind of things that you guys have learned along the way. I also realized I did not invite people to post questions. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, ideas, feel free to put them in the chat. I will be checking them throughout this conversation as well. I forgot to say that. But along with like the first thing, what brought you guys to doing this work? Because I feel like it's hard. It's hard work. And like kind of what made you want to do this specific work in this arena? I don't know who wants to start first. Or we can keep the same order.
So is that me first?
Yeah, you can go ahead, Nestic.
So I came to the coalition from a career change. I was in youth development, AYOTA, in criminal justice, and I was just over it. I had done all of the work that there could be done at the Boys and Girls Club. Like I legit started from a teenager working there to the executive director. And so it was just time for a change. But no matter what arena I was in, I was always concerned about the safety and well-being of Black girls and Black women. And so being at the coalition, I'm at a more macro level and like policy level, and we're not there. And so being a part of the coalition, I get to be a part of the safety and well-being of Black women and girls at a more policy level. So that's kind of how I got there.
Thank you.
And I kind of feel like I fell into this work. I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And in 2006, I released my book, I Can't Live Like This Anymore, that talked about my life experience surviving and my healing journey. And after the book came out, it just kind of started creating a life of its own. I wasn't writing it to create a platform or to usher myself into this work. It kind of pulled me in. And I think just in general, just the whole foundation of my wanting to do healing work, period, really was inspired by my children. Like just realizing that I had done all that I could do to protect my children from reliving my experience and the experience that my mother had, etc. But unless I healed, they were still going to be getting the residuals of my pain. And they really sparked me on going on a healing journey before I could love myself enough to do it.
Well, that's beautiful. I find that's true for a lot of people in this work, right? So, yeah, ooh, that just really touched me.
Thank you.
Dana, did you wanna?
Yeah, and similarly to Leleda, I'm a survivor of childhood sexual assault and intimate partner violence and adult sexual violence. So when you are a survivor, it becomes a part of you, and so you learn to talk to people, you learn to share with people kind of what you're going through. You have friends that come to you. There are whisper networks of women across the world to keep each other safe. And so I was a part of whisper networks in the 90s, where we were saying, hey, this is where you go. This is where you're not safe. These are people who we've run across that are okay and not okay. I worked for many years in housing, and intimate partner violence and sexual violence were very prominent in dealing with those issues with, for me, with Black women in particular, because that was a good portion of the clientele that I was working with. So I got the opportunity to come and work at the Rape Crisis Center to put the grassroots work that I had already been doing to more of a organizational standpoint. And I appreciate that opportunity because it gives me a platform that I did not have to be able to do work more concentrated for women and for Black women in particular.
I think you guys, both you, Dana and Leda, like really highlighted, I think, something that um, is really important of like how we get into this work. Is not something we probably typically plan. And you too, Nestic, of like, we don't really, when I started this job, right, I didn't really realize what I was going to be doing here, right? And I think similar to the Leda, like why did this work and why Dana also is because of my own personal experience of sexual violence and intimate partner violence, and wanting to really support my community and have those conversations that we just don't have in general, but especially in the Black community, we don't talk about the abuse that that happens. So how have you guys, I don't know if Dana or Leda, you feel comfortable talking about that? Have you guys managed um, feelings, emotions, your mental health, your mental well-being as being survivors while also helping other people through their healing journey?
So I can actually talk about something that happened a couple of days ago. So I posted a picture on Facebook of me as a middle schooler. And it was a picture I hadn't seen in years, and people were commenting on it. And I was like, oh, haha, this is great. Because I had this crazy asymmetrical haircut, and I was like, look at me back in the day. And then as people started commenting on my age and how young I looked and how innocent I was, I started remembering where I was at that moment. And where I was at that moment was weekly being assaulted by a neighbor. And I was triggered, and I had no idea that that was what was going to put me there. And we talk a lot about healing is not a straight line, it's a continuum. So it has taken me two days just to be able to get back into my body. So I haven't been able to sleep. I've been jittery. I've been triggered, essentially. So the healing journey, as I experience it, goes up and down all the time. And being able to know what it is that I need to do to take care of myself. And that's a lot of what it is that we talk to people about, especially at RCC. It's not, we're here to heal you, because healing looks different for every person. It's we're here to give you skills to be able to manage when out of the blue something happens, right? And something catches you off guard. So I'm lucky in that, honestly, I have an amazing staff where, I actually contacted Shaquila because we were supposed to have a meeting yesterday at noon. And I was like, you know what? I can't do this. I can't. And she said, thank you very much. Please take care of yourself. I appreciate you. And that's what I needed at that moment. So, part of that healing journey is knowing what it is that you need in the moment, knowing what it is that you can do to keep yourself safe, because a lot of what sexual violence is and creates is a feeling of not being safe and not being protected and not being cared for. And I can't count on other people to do that for me. So I have to learn skills to be able to do that for myself. So I left my house and spent many hours by myself in an office, just me, myself, and I. And I was able to get myself together after literally 2 days. And that's okay. That's the other thing, is that it's okay. These things happen. This is all a part of that continuum in healing. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing that I'm doing that is wrong. It is literally just, this is how trauma works. And being able to respect that place for yourself and reach out for what you need and take care of yourself as best as you can. Yeah, I think those are all the words I have on that right now.
Those were good words. Really good words. I don't know, Leda, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I think it is all about the perspective and being in tune when you know something is off, and I think for me, one of the things was redefining triggers. I used to feel like there was a weakness if I was triggered. And I've kind of turned that around to really say that triggers help me see what is yet to be done on my healing journey. And so I've learned to kind of lean into triggers as opposed to lean away from them. And I think one of the things that helped me greatly has been my art. And that's really how art came back into my life in this season. Was I was working with some young survivors. I'm talking about kindergarten, first grade girls. And I couldn't pass that pain through. And art was the only thing, and art for my own sake, was the only thing that became a healing balm for me. Drawing in the morning, drawing in the evening after doing the work really became my daily prayer. And that has really helped me to pass through the pain and help to grow, but like Dana said, being in tune with yourself, not being thrown off when those things happen, and not being judgmental of yourself, but really saying, now that this is coming to me like this, it's saying that I'm ready to deal with the emotions. I'm ready to deal with that trauma now, and then doing the things in that moment that you need.
Nestor, did you have anything to add on to that?
I think they covered everything. Just there are days where you are riding the healing wave, and then there are other days when the healing wave is riding you, and it's important to honor both of those spaces. So
I love the wave. I think something, when I first got into this work as a little young buck, not that I'm not young still, skipping over that, about 2.5 years ago, I was not prepared for how much healing I have not yet had, and how much I was going to be consistently tested and triggered throughout the advocacy work that I've been doing. So something that comes to mind for me is just like, and I had a question for you guys about, as far as like tips or things that you guys feel like would be helpful for young people who are getting into this work, is like, how do you stay motivated? I think, right? Like, I got in, and it's hard to be the advocate of a Black woman while you are systemically being oppressed for being their advocate, and then they're being systemically oppressed for being a Black woman in this world that does not want Black women to exist.
Mm-hmm. I think you have to go into this with eyes wide open, because the caution is that if you're not where you need to be in your healing journey to do this work, you're going to bleed over the troops. And so being really clear, if this is something that I can do right now, and even if it's something you've done, can I continue to do this? And I think not, I never get to the point where I feel like I might not need a booster shot of some type. And I've done everything. I've done therapy, medication, all of those things. And I remain open that I might need any of those things at any time. So I think if you ever get to the point where you feel like I've arrived and you believe your own hype, then you're in danger of being hurtful to other people.
That's a word, Laleta.
Pastor Laleta.
Coming through. I really do like that idea of just like consistently checking in with yourself. Like, you have not always arrived, right? And you're not always going to be right. And I do think, as a person who got into this work probably before I should have, to be transparent, right? I was not in a good space. Like, I was fresh off of a recent assault. And I remember just like using work as a distraction, which is, I think, something that a lot of people do, especially in this work where it's always something to do. There's always something to fix. There's always somebody who needs help. So I think it's really great that you guys are bringing it back to making sure that you're taking care of yourself consistently, in like ways to make sure you're checking in with yourself to make sure you're taking care of yourself. Because if you are not healthy or well or centering yourself, you can't then center in a community or help in doing that. So I think that was really, really helpful. The other question I had for you guys, maybe you can speak on, like, has there been, I guess, like lessons you guys have taken from this work or obstacles that you guys have had that has really informed how you guys navigate your career now, in your journeys now? I don't know, Nestic, do you have any thoughts?
You just gotta show up. I just feel like the obstacles that I faced in like the last 2 or 3 years have been simply anti-Blackness from my colleagues, not in my building colleagues, but like these people that I'm supposed to be in the fight with, that kind of thing. And I still just have to show up Black, right? I don't know how to be anything other than Black, right? And so being able to be like, this is just who I am. And I know that that's just a part of my personality. Like, you're going to take this Blackness whether you want it or not. But the anti-Blackness I have had to learn to navigate from both white women and non-Black women of color has just been, it's been eye-opening, and it's been, I don't want to say it's mind-blowing because I don't put anything past people, but it's mind-blowing that I have to learn to navigate this from women who are supposed to be in this fight with me. And I think learning how to navigate that, I have to lean on Black women. For example, there have been white women in our field who have had entire meetings around what needs to be done, essentially what needs to be done for me, right? Like, I was on, I did my training, some white colleagues went back to their assistant directors and supervisors and told them that I made them uncomfortable, and that I made, one quote was, I made them feel like shit for being white, and just a bunch of other foolishness. And so there was a regional meeting behind, like, what can we do to make Nestic not make us white women feel uncomfortable? And so I had to have a conversation with my executive director and assistant executive director, like, this is the scope of my life, right? And so I need y'all to have Now I'm gonna say something, be clear. I'm gonna say something to her, but you need to step in and say something because we're talking about white allyship, white co-conspirators or whatever. And so I wanted to ride down on her, right? But I had to have a conversation with her and like explain to her, you don't get to do that, right? Like you don't get to have a whole meeting, put me on the agenda and tell me what, how that works. And so she backtracked and, all of those things. But it's just anti-Blackness because my white colleagues, they don't have these kinds of issues when they're talking about prevention or intervention, things like that. And if I was talking about something else, it would be a whole different thing. And so I've learned to just lean on Black women. I've called Shaquila, I've called you, I've called the executive director of culturally specific programs, and I've called the Black women on my board, right? Like, hey, I just want you to know that this happened. I know that you know that this happened, but I'm in a training. I just got tried. And if they said that I said it, I said it. Right? Like there was a Black woman in one of my trainings who came to me and was like, I know that because I was livid. She's like, I know that you're mad, but I need you to let me carry that energy for you. And you need to be able to go back and finish this training. And so I'm just learning to lean on other Black women. Now, I don't know this woman from a can of paint. Shout out to Verlika in Milwaukee for literally saving my job because I was about to go ham. And so I just learned to lean on other Black women.
Oh, that's really good. And I remember us talking about that before because when I first started RCC, I leaned on you a lot, girl.
Yes.
Leaned on you quite a bit. And I think that's something that we don't talk about as far as like that being really important, I guess, in any field that you are in, but specifically in the sexual violence field, which is primarily filled with white women. And there are culturally specific programming that's happening more and more and more, but it's still primarily dominated by white women. I think it's really important for Black women to know that they can lean on their colleagues, Black women who are there to support them, to aid them, to respite them, to vent, chest when things are happening. I don't know, Dana, Leleda, did you guys have anything to add?
Well, I'd like to just say thank you to all the white women in the field of sexual assault prevention and work. Because of them, they really inspired me to start my own work because I could not work for a white woman no more. I had to start my own thing because, as Nestic said, I want to just add that other level on it. It's not just anti-Blackness, it's anti-Black womanness, very clearly and very specifically. And it got so oppressive, even from folks just lying and just a lot of things that Nestic is saying, I experienced those types of things. And I just had to get to the point where I said, I will no longer work for a white woman. I'm going to have my own power to be able to make my own decisions about what I do, what I won't do, so that I could stay in this work. Because with some of my time, my tenure of doing statewide work within Wisconsin specifically, there were times where there were absolutely no Black women sexual assault advocates and no train stopped behind that. If there was a time when other groups and sometimes people don't want to accept that anti-Blackness is a thing. They just want to say, oh, we're just racist. No, it's anti-Black because throughout that time, there was other, ethnicities that were covered. And as a matter of fact, if there were some that were not covered, the world would have shook. But there was no concern about the fact that Black women weren't. And the truth is, we don't last long in this field because it is so oppressive. And part of the reason it's so oppressive is one, white women, white privilege. But the other part is back to what we said before, we all enter this work with some level of healing and some level of unhealing. And when you work in the domestic violence field, the badge of honor really is that you're a survivor of domestic violence. Conversely, when you work in the sexual assault field, most people do not talk about that. And as a matter of fact, there's a lot of shame from people who work in this field over even identifying as a survivor of sexual abuse. And so you have a lot of survivors who have been through some things. And because they haven't healed, everything they do comes through that lens and it's just amplified. So, again, I have to thank white women because you pushed me to where I needed to be.
I love that. Thank you, white women, for pushing Leda to where she needed to be, because if it wasn't for her, Lord knows where some of these Black girls would be without her phenomenal work in Dane County doing the things that needs to be done. Dana, did you have anything to add to that?
So, I am in a unique position in that I'm a Black woman that is now co-leading a traditionally white agency. And I find myself being the only Black face in a lot of meetings when I am representing this agency and when I am representing what it is that we're doing, and when I am doing trainings, and when I am leading teams and pushing those persons to recognize and understand that they have created a space that it's actually unwelcoming to me, to anyone that I would bring in. And I don't want to bring people in to spaces that are unwelcoming. And so I am having to, on a regular basis, educate at every meeting that I'm at, push the narrative that you can't just expect Black folks to just walk into a space that you have purposely kept them out of, and then on top of that, made unwelcoming once they come in, and then disregard the words that are coming from their mouth because that's not how you see it. And I get that pushback from white women, from non-Black women of color, and it's exhausting. I really want people to hear it is exhausting, because this is every single day. This isn't just every once in a while I have this experience. It is every day I have this experience. So every day I have to unpack the trauma that comes to me. I have to unpack the hostility that comes to me, because let me tell you something. When you stand up and you say, this is how this needs to be, and this is how this needs to go, people are hostile. People who all the way through, all of a sudden, are now all of a sudden going, well, yes, I agree with this, but there's the thing, and there's the this, and all it is anti-Blackness, and the unwillingness to change, and the unwillingness to be able to look at yourself and say, here are the things that I need to be at inquiry with. And one of the things that I do routinely is I go and I listen, especially to the youngins. I'm on Twitter a lot, not really to talk, because I don't really have much to say on Twitter, but I listen to the young activists that are out there, because I need to learn, and I need to be at inquiry with myself, and I need to make sure that I am pushing forward the things that will very clearly not contribute to anti-Blackness. I need to make sure that my language is correct. I need to make sure that the people that I am advocating for, the ones that are most marginalized, the ones that are most impacted, that I am not advocating incorrectly. And the only way that I can do that is to listen. I just don't know these things. I have to go out and I've got to study. I've got to read. I've got to listen. And if I, as a Black person, have to do that, think about what you got to do as double as not a Black person. And put yourself in that space of always having to learn, because I always have to learn. I always have to learn as a light-skinned Black person that has that light-skinned privilege. I always have to make sure that I am not overstepping my bounds. So the one thing that I want everybody to know is that we don't know it all. We don't know that much. We are always learning. We are always getting better. We are always dismantling the yokes of oppression that have been put onto us for generations. So take yourself out of the picture, decenter yourself, and center the persons that need to be centered.
Yes. Ooh, all of that. I feel like one reason why I was pushed into this movement, similar to the latest, like I was tired of whenever people hear about sexual violence, people automatically think about just like the cute little white girl who was abused. And it was never about the numerous Black and brown women who are being abused, assaulted, harmed, killed, forgotten, kicked out consistently. And I think that's something that I don't think a lot of people realize, is like how difficult it is to navigate in a space that consistently decenters you and decenters your experiences, and not even decenter it, but kick it to the curb and don't care about it. So I really, all of that. And I guess, I don't know if you guys can probably speak on, for people who are wondering why, because some people may be curious why you need to center Black women in this conversation. Because I feel like a lot of pushback is like, why Black women? Why do we need to center their experiences and their voices? I hear that quite frequently. There's other people. So I don't know who would like to maybe answer that question for people who may be.
Sure, I'll jump in on that because I've been really Black forward with my work. And a lot of that came out with the work I started doing in the state of Wisconsin and seeing the lack of Black women advocates and the perspective that Black women needed to heal and Black girls needed to be protected. And it made me think, okay, there's not many of us doing this work. So while I'm doing it, I'm going to be very Black specific. And everybody is fine, because I grew up in Madison. I can deal with any kind of person, which I think is a positive thing. But once I started being very specific about working with Black women, there was an issue. About 6 years ago, I started Black Women Heal Day, and I would hear, well, what about white women? What about other women? And I was like, as long as we were in the corner, in the back, in the dark, no one had a problem with it. But then when you bring the conversation about Black women and Black girls, now all of a sudden, people get quite uncomfortable. And I even get that sometimes from Black men, so I think seeing the lack of it, understanding through my own personal healing journey, and being able to understand that, I started doing my family tree of sexual abuse, and I realized that my daughter was the only woman in my direct lineage on my mother's side that had not been sexually assaulted since they stole us from Africa. And as I continue to do more work and more research, I realized that this wasn't my personal story. This is the story of every single Black woman in America, in Puerto Rico, in the Dominican Republic, in Brazil, in Cuba, all of us, that once you get to slavery, are from that lineage of sexual assault and sexual harm and sexual abuse on every scale. And so when you look at it, and one thing I used to say when I was doing some of the more statewide national work within organizations, I would say, as a matter of fact, not only should we not have a lack of Black-centered programs and advocates, it should be at the top of our list. When we look at the sheer numbers of Black women who are directly and indirectly impacted by sexual assault, we need to be on everybody's agenda, as a matter of fact.
Yes. I love that. I love that because I feel like in so many spaces that I've personally been in, it's just been like, what's the point? Like, why do we have to do that? Why can't we center all women? Right? Like, why do we need to center Black women's experiences? And I feel like I'm tired of answering that question because it's like, read a book. Like, have we not done research? Especially when you look at the history of activism that has happened in this movement has been done, led by the labor, like most labor in this godforsaken country has been done by Black women. We have been carrying this movement in this country and y'all men on our back and doing this work. And I am part of the reason why I want to do this panel is to really just pay homage to y'all's work and all the labor y'all have been putting into this, right? It's not easy staying in this movement. It's not easy doing this work just in general for anybody, but especially for like Dana, like I tell you all the time, I don't envy your job at all because I couldn't, when dealing with me, I'm not the easiest to deal with, but dealing with all of it, all of the pushback, all of the violence, all of the harm that you have to take and to break down and remember that it's not about you, that people's harmful words, people's disrespect is not even about you, it's about their insecurities, right? So I really, I really am really passionate about that. But I'm looking at all of this and a lot of people are like, yay. And a lot of people are talking about stepping aside and like letting Black women lead, which I think is really important. But I also wanted to ask you guys on, as we talk about like centering Black women and centering Black women leadership, how do we not take on like all of the labor? I feel like it's really common for people to put all of the labor on Black women and put the burden on Black women to do and fix everything, which is also not healthy and not fair. Because then the responsibility then falls on us to uplift us out of oppression, which don't really work that well. So I don't know, Dana, did you have any thoughts about that?
See, Lord, I was hoping that Nestic could chime in because I feel like I've got to do all these things.
And that's why I asked you.
Yep. You're right, and the thing that I've been trying to do is delegate more, empower more people, bring more people in. So I'm constantly fighting to bring Black folks into spaces, but that burden is something that I feel a lot. So I would love to hear from my sisters here on this panel. How do I get some rest, y'all? How do I get some rest?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Laleta.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Take it.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to drop dead tomorrow, RCC would have something up next Tuesday.
Oh, what?
Right? Like, and that's the thing that I know that we don't talk about as Black women. Like, we don't get the luxury of rest.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you got to start taking it. I will call in Black on a random Tuesday morning because I don't feel like getting up yet. So, and I don't feel like doing it, right? But I know that traditionally we don't have that luxury, and so we have to start taking it. We have to start taking it. We have to start taking it, and we have to start taking it some more. Because if we don't, like I said, when you riding the wave and the wave start riding you, your body gonna make you rest.
Yeah.
Your mind gonna make you rest. Like there are generations of us, like just from the plantation, of working ourselves to death.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And our people didn't get the luxury of just resting. And so for me, as an act of liberation, as an act of freedom, as a because my grandmother didn't get to, like, because my mama and my aunties and them didn't get to, I can.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to start taking it. I don't want you to drop dead. Send some stuff to me, right? Like I said, the lady at the Black lady that was at my training was like, hey, let me take this energy from you right now because I don't want you to have to carry it. right? And so that's where leaning in on other Black women, women that you can trust, women that you can, like you said, delegate it to, passing some things off. We have the, we think that if I don't do it, who will? Somebody will do it. Okay, they probably not gonna do it the way you want it done, but that's a different.
The crux of why Dana take on all the labor. Let's call a spade a spade. You know, Dana. This is why because she's a Virgo also, and that won't help.
Absolutely. We gotta learn to give it to somebody else. Somebody else will do it, and if they don't, then
everything doesn't have to be done. Everything is not urgent. Everything is not an emergency. And so there's some things that can wait for that rest, because for the longevity of this work, I made the decisions I did because I wanted to stay in this work. I didn't want to be burnt out of this work. And so there's things that we must do to rest. I never understood that quote. I think it's by Audre Lorde, that self-care is revolutionary, or is it Tony K. Bombara? Whoever said it. It's the truth. And I understood that. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and this young lady said that basically her therapist told her that when she doesn't take care of herself, when she just goes and goes and goes, she's actually feeding into white supremacy. And I just said, damn, no, I won't. No, I won't. And so I think that is a really crucial thing, that self-care. And for people like us who have an internal passion for this work, it's not about the paycheck, then we sometimes just have to schedule it. Every fourth Friday is my self-care time, or whatever it is. You have to put it on your calendar in order to get it done. Because like Nestic said, and it's the truth, you drop dead, RCC ain't closing its doors.
They'll find somebody else to do it.
Quick, fast, and in a hurry.
I'm saying, this work will take you out.
It will.
It'll literally take you out.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to get taken out. So we got to start putting it on the calendar. We got to start,
Well, I'm gonna take somebody with me before it take me out. I ain't going by myself. Okay.
No, and then it can't take you out because, shoot, Lord, no, I can't be there by myself.
Yeah, right.
Don't leave me. But one thing I realized that came up for me while you're listening to you guys is the guilt that comes with self-care. And I don't know if other people have a hard time managing that guilt of putting yourself first. And I'm not sure if it comes from Black women have been taught to put everybody before our needs and our respite. So I don't know if you guys have thoughts. Laleta, you have thoughts on like how to move past that guilt, or like even maybe where that historical context of like where that guilt comes from.
Yeah, I think sometimes you have to find the history of something. Sometimes you have to just move forward. So I think we may not even need to unpack anymore where it comes from, and need to just make the changes that we need to make it happen. And when we understand that if we're really committed to this work, and we're working so hard because we're committed to this work, then when we understand that we can't stay committed to this work if we don't take care of ourselves, if we're not here, we cannot do the work. And so that really kind of feeds into, I'm doing this because of my passion. Even if we can't do it for ourselves yet, we can do it for the survivors we work with, the women and the girls and all the ones that we were working to support. And so I think, I play games with myself sometimes. I'll get a change jar. Once that money get to a certain level, I'll go get a massage or something like that. I travel a lot because that's my thing. And particularly traveling to countries with people who look like me. So that when I go there, because I almost got in a fight in the Louvre in Paris because this white woman thought she was. And I said, you know what? I got to be in the right space. Let me go where people look like me now for my depressing, so I can get out of this, because I can't, be arrested in some foreign jail. So, but I think just really just making the time, making the space, And it doesn't always have to even be about money. It can be a drive. It can be journaling. It can be baking, or, just reading or doing something that just lifts you up. And sometimes really, I have to set a timer to say, I'm going to read for sometimes 5 minutes, because otherwise, if I don't put it in there, it's not going to be done. And sometimes you just need a little bit of something on a consistent basis that helps you get further along.
I love that. I think something that Dana, you have taught me a lot, which is you have always kept me accountable to take care of myself. And that's something you and Nestic have both been since I started here. And I had an attitude about it at first. I still do sometimes. Of holding me accountable to take time off, like leave, go home. Like I
take the time off. You ain't gonna get it back.
I got about a month and a half of PTO built up. It's just still chilling there. Right. And so I feel like that's something that a lot of new people getting into the social justice movement need to hear more. And I think building in those networks of getting to know like women who've been doing this work for so long, you guys have so much knowledge and so much wisdom, right? And like having those people keep you accountable to yourself, right? Like I think that was really, I think something that we really need to work on. I know
Right.
I need to be better at hearing it.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad. I'm checking the comments too, just to see kind of like where we are with time also. But I also wanted to ask you guys, what does this movement look like moving forward for you guys? Because I know like we are in this space with like the sexual violence movement of really trying to center people of color, center Black women, and like decolonize. And we're in this moment of like anti-racism and all these different spaces. So like what does next steps look like for you guys in this movement in this moment right now? I don't know if anyone has initial responses.
So I know for me, what it is that I'm moving people towards is community control. So right now, systems kind of run how sexual assault response goes. And we are not hearing from those who are most impacted. So I am fighting in all of my spaces to say, let's remove systems. Not that there aren't spaces that they should be. There are spaces, right? But then there should be spaces where they're not. And there should be spaces where a young trans woman can walk in and say, here is a place where I feel okay, where I feel safe, where I can discuss my experiences and not have to worry about what so-and-so parole officer thinks, or what so-and-so police officer thinks, or what so-and-so DA believes. So for me, decolonizing the spaces that we are in is a real important step. And that's something that at RCC in particular, we have been working on a lot with pushback, because that's how that goes. But we're keeping the course. And, and it just so happens, I also work with Outreach LGBTQ Center. I'm on their board. And we as a board have also been doing that work in that space and being able to, again, center Blackness, center those that are most impacted. Getting cops out of Pride was a very big deal because our Black trans women and Black trans men came to us and said, we don't feel safe. We don't feel comfortable. This is a colonized space and not a space where we can have pride and feel those things. And that was a very big movement. Same with, the No Cops in School that Bless Freedom Inc. for fighting for years to make that happen. So decolonizing the space is kind of where my in is right now, and where it is that I'm working really hard, because then I can bring survivors to that space and have them lead the conversation. We are lovely people, and we all have some sort of privilege, right? So being able to bring those that are more impacted than us to those space to talk about those things and work through what it is that is needed. Because if we focus on who needs the most and take care of those needs, then we take care of everybody's needs just by focusing on that one person, right? So that I know is what we are currently working on for what the future looks like, for survivors, at least.
I love that. I feel like I think we've been having a lot of conversations in general, like globally, about how do we decolonize spaces and removing systems from organizations. And I think that is like a good step in the right direction for this movement. Laleda, did you have any thoughts on like what we can do, or ideas on like how we can move forward in this movement to keep making sure that we're centering Black women and girls, to get the healing and the space that they deserve?
Right. And I think one of the things is really helping to empower Black women to understand the power that they have to dictate healing, whether you're looking at a family or from a community-based type of a setting. And um, I think even, I get real caught up with language, probably because I'm a writer. I can get, really thrown off. Like, so this whole thing about let Black women lead, I don't like that. I don't like the way that sounds, because I don't need anyone to let me lead. I will lead. I will create the space for myself to lead. And so I think helping to empower more and more Black women to understand that you don't need permission from anyone to be a leader, to have an impact. And really going from understanding the honest truth. None of these programs are going to do anything to help to protect, particularly Black girls, until families start protecting Black girls. And understanding that at that root level is really where this movement is, and helping families to understand their responsibility for keeping our children safe, for creating, settings, because most of the times when children are assaulted, they're assaulted in very intimate family friends kind of settings. And so the big picture and organizations and coalitions and all of these things, they serve their purpose. But I really try to help women to understand that they have so much power to change generational impact of sexual assault in their own families. And when we do that, when we start at the individual level of responsibility, we're able to move forward. And I think it's also important, I was watching a video and I was going to comment on it, and I didn't yet because I wanted to get my thoughts together, of a friend of mine on Facebook who was saying, women, stop leaving your children with babysitters and with boyfriends and all these things. And I absolutely agree with that. Okay. But the other piece is,
Y'all stop touching on the babies.
Stop touching the damn babies. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's not just the responsibility of women and of Black women to make sure that our children are safe. It's also the responsibility of Black men to be in position as well. And quite frankly, keep your hands to yourself. That's the problem. The problem isn't whether or not you left your child with a babysitter that you shouldn't have, per se. The problem is that person felt like he had a right to touch your child, right? And so I want to make sure that, I want to look from a lens of empowering Black women and what they can do, but I don't want us to look at a lens of blaming Black women for everything that's wrong for Black children, because you know what? We show up. Statistics say 80-90% of Black families in Dane County even are headed by Black women. That means we're showing up. Now, do we need to grow? Do we need to learn? Do we need some things that we need to do? Yeah, but you know what? It starts with being there. So then every other circle around us needs to make sure that they're supporting us in the ways that we need, so we can keep our children safe and ourselves.
I love that, Laleda, because I think that highlights I think a lot of times we look at like systemic issues within like the Black community instead of looking at it at like as a global issue of like, can we ask why the Black mom has to leave her child with a man or a random person, and why they can't afford childcare, or why the father isn't present, right? Maybe
Where he at?
where the father at? Where is the community support at? Where is the rest of the family at, right? Like, I think a lot of times Black people put the onus on Black women as the reason why everything's wrong, and then make Black women then go in and try to fix it. Right. And it's like, how are we the problem and the solution at the same time? I need to pick which one you want us to be, because right now you have me do too much. Either I'm the problem or I'm the solution, but I'm not going to be both of them for you at the same time.
Right. And we live within a system that will pay a white woman $1,500 to take care of your Black child, but won't give you $300, and that's all you need. It was just $300 more to keep your place, to keep your job. They won't support you as a mother, you know. So we're fighting against these historic systems. You know, I gave a presentation one day, and I was saying that we have to look at why are there so many white women in social services, and let's look at it from a historical perspective. We want to look at the white man. We want to talk about that white male patriarchal. Can we talk about white female matriarchal? And can we look at and understand that the one who most closely watched what Black women did on the plantation was white women? They controlled our well-being. They controlled the well-being of our children. They controlled our breasts. So can we understand that when that white women have been put at the watchtower by white men to control what we do? And if we fast forward, we're not on a plantation, but who is at the watchtower on education, on social services, most over housing, and any of those things is white women. And so I'm gonna call out to my white women who feel like you're doing this work because you're just so wonderful. That could be true. But I also challenge you to go within yourself to do the work that you need to do continually, because you're in this work because of a system that continues. Just like we look at the history of the police, you know, why they started to catch runaway slaves. We have to also look at why white women are in these power positions, and why when Black women get in these places, they're run out.
And to add on to that, the harm that comes when white women are in these positions, both from the people who also have to be their coworkers and colleagues, and from the survivors who need actual support and guidance. I think I love me a white woman. I have white friends, as those.
Yes. Please throw that in there. Throw that in there.
But I will say that, you know, we tend to assume the best when white women are in these positions of authority over Black women's healing and survival in a lot of spaces. And we never question that. We never push back on that. And the minute a Black woman does push back on that, all hell breaks loose.
Right.
And it's not safe.
Right.
I'll say this. Well-intending white women are just as problematic as flat out racist people, like racist men. I tell white women all the time, I like my racism hard. Give me my racism hard, like I like my tequila and my margaritas, right? I need to know what I'm dealing with, right? And especially in quintessential Madison of like, you know, holding hands at the Martin Luther King Day celebration and, you know, singing We Shall Overcome. But you go back to your neighborhoods, and if I'm walking down the street trying to get some fresh air, I literally can be killed, right? And like when you were talking, like I'm a MSW student right now, and all we learn about is white women saving the Black and brown folks from their horrible lives. And that's the reason why most white women get into social work in the social services field, right? So we learned about Jane Addams, and we learned about Susan B. Anthony. Susan B. Anthony was a racist, quite the racist. She would rather have her arm cut off than to be fighting for Negroes to be able to vote, right? And these are the women that we put up on pedestals. And then that's where we get white savior complex from, right? Like, oh, I'm going over here to the African country and I'm going to be a good Christian, right? And I'm going to do my little mission trip and I'm going to do all of these things and I'm going to take pictures with the kids. But when you come back to America, you're afraid of Black and brown kids, right? Like make it make sense. It makes no sense. And I think like when we're talking about as far as decolonization, right? Like there just needs to be spaces where white people aren't welcome. And that's just it. Like no explanation needed. You can't come in this space. And so I think I want to make sure that in our field, when I'm giving for spaces for advocates of color, right? Like you're just not welcome. And that's just it, right? I get so much pushback from white women who want to know why they can't come into space. My colleague who is a Mexican woman, she identifies as a Mexican woman. She's my co-director with me, and people are like emailing her, and white women are emailing her and asking her if they can have an agenda before they'll allow their advocates of color to come to this space. And it's like, nope.
That's nothing new.
Right. I'm not reporting nothing back to you, ma'am. I'm not reporting nothing back to you. And for me, decolonizing also means from like a policy level, right? Things have to live when I lead the coalition, right? That's their language, right? Policies, procedures. That is white folks' language. They are in charge of the policies and procedures. They make up the policies and procedures. And so for me, it's like, okay, I'm about to go into this space. And if we're talking policy and procedures, how does this benefit or harm Black women and Black girls? And for things to live, because I have no desire to retire from WCASA in 20 or 30 years. That's not the desire of my heart. That's not the call over my life from the Lord, right? And so there needs to be policies and procedures and things like that are in Black and white, written in paper. And I think another way of decolonizing is paying Black women. We do the same work. We do more work, and we're better at it. I said what I said. Don't at me. And we're still getting paid less. And that's from like a policy level, like, and it's perfectly normal. It's perfectly fine. The 77 cents on the dollar and all of that, like this is normal. So how are we looking at the policies and how are we looking at the procedures and how are we making sure that the safety of it, like Dr. Angela Rose Black says, I don't need anything about your exposure, right? Like, don't ask me to do nothing for free. I'm not doing nothing for free. And I think decolonizing our thoughts and our processes around that has to do with paying Black women their worth. And don't ask me to do nothing for free because I'm not doing anything for free and I don't need your exposure. If we're being completely honest, you need me. Right. And I think that is where we can begin to, and I learned that from Leda G herself, right? Like, I don't need your exposure. Like, I'm good over here. I'm good on these parts. But if you wanna contract me in, Sun Prairie School District, if y'all looking for a contractor to help you decolonize what it is that you're doing over there, right? Like, holla at me, pay me my coins. I can't do nothing for free. And I think that as long as we continue to decolonize at a policy level and the way that we're thinking, that's one of the ways that I'm working on decolonizing our movement.
Yep.
Oh my, I'm like reeling and like digesting all of the wisdom you guys just dropped out, from Dana to Leleda to Nestic. Ooh, my little heart just feels so filled. What I really wanted to like pull out from all of that there's just not one way to tackle this. And I think a lot of times in spaces with white folks, they are like, okay, what's the solution? The solution is bringing in this little cute little Black girl. She gonna handle all the little Black people, and then that's the solution. There's your diversity, there's your quota, there's your paycheck, and be done. And I feel like what you guys just hit on is that there is not one way to tackle these issues, because like Leda said, there's so many avenues of like why we are where we are. As far as like sexual violence and domestic violence and intimate partner violence, there's reasons on why we are here. So we can't just rest assured on one solution, one resolution to fix all of why we are here. Like I was reading this article and they were talking about how sexual violence and intimate partner violence is only a byproduct of like poverty and these like huge systemic issues of power and control. And I feel like that context is that reality is never put into context when we're having these conversations of, you know, it's not normal that people want to violate other people in those ways. That's not normal. And
can I also say too, though, that it's important that if you have a Black staff person, it is not their job to train and educate their coworkers unless that is their position as a trainer with your organization, because too often we are put in positions that are very uncomfortable because you don't have no power. So if you piss off your coworker who wants to feel really good about themselves and don't want to deal with any of their anti-Blackness, now you created essentially a hostile work environment for yourself, and you're not even getting paid for that. You know, I actually had someone in this field, when they were putting their Black worker in that position, said, I actually hired you to be Black.
I know other
I was
Black
gonna say, I've heard that. Yeah.
They experience that, absolutely.
You know, and so that adds to that stress as well, you know, and so and then also too, you know, when you are contracted to do work and training and stuff like that, read the small print too, because I've had people try to take advantage of me. I don't know if they didn't think I could read, you know, where I had to come back and say, wait, no, I can't, no. And so it continues to be an uphill battle to do this work. And I really know in my soul, like if I was still working for a white woman-led organization that was as oppressive as hell, I would have left this field 10, 15 years ago. I know I would have. So, you know, it's a lot of times I think, and everyone can't do that, but a lot of times we got to do our own thing, because you really cannot with the constraints. Like I'm tired of fighting all the time. Like my daughter says, Mom, you're always ready to fight somebody or think somebody is doing something or saying something. And I just said, you know, at my age, I have just heard and experienced so much unnecessary shit from people that I'm not going to give you a long time to see if you really doing it or not. If it look like it, if it smell like it real quick, I'm gonna go ahead and assume it. I could be right, I could be wrong, but guess what? What I'm not is invested in my time in it.
Yeah.
So there's sometimes when we have to walk away from our situation because you cannot fix the beast sometimes from the inside. We all have our own things to do, so I don't judge where people feel like their work is. But what I do say is that if it's become too much for you, it's okay to leave, because if this is your call, if this is your work, if this is a bigger part of the universe, space will be made for you to do what you need to do. And you don't have to sell your soul to do it.
And it low-key ain't enough money to be selling your soul, if I'm just being completely honest. It's not enough money to be selling your soul, to not be taking rest, right? To not be going on vacation, to not, you know what I mean? Like we're not in this work for the pay, I guess is what I'm saying, because it ain't there, right? So creating your own is definitely your own lane and honoring. I think there's a lot of like, if you don't fight the fight that I fight in the same way that you fight, kind of thing that we have going on. But we all in different lanes. I feel like my friend Sam Collier in Milwaukee, she says that we need people in the streets and we need people in the suites and we need people in between. And so, yes, grassroots, that's not my call, right? I can't put together a march. Like I'm just not good at it. Like I wouldn't be any good in it. But if you want me to go into the suites and my suites and your grassroots, nobody is bigger than anybody else. Nobody is better, right? Like that's my lane and I'm good at it. I'm not no good with people, spitting on me and all of that. I'd have messed up the peaceful protest. Like that's just, I'm not good at some things and I know my lane. And so when we decolonizing also looks like we not putting ourselves against each other, right? Like I need people in the streets and the freedom fighters and all of that. I need y'all, right? But if everybody is out here where all the policies and the procedures is being made, while we all out here, somebody got to be, and I'm fighting the same fight that you're fighting, just in a different arena. And so, yeah, right. I need y'all.
Know when it's not time for you anymore, though, because I agree
absolutely
every level, but not always us. And so just knowing sometimes when it's for you, for your own self-preservation, time to step back, time to walk away, time to do this work differently. But I absolutely agree. We need us on every level.
I was going to ask you a question, Dana, because I feel like you're at a crux of a very unique situation of being at an extremely historically white organization. And I feel like from the outside looking in, and obviously I work at RCC and I see you doing such phenomenal work. I don't know if it's the question of like, how do you handle it? But like, I don't know how you manage that like long history of RCC and also trying to carry it and move it forward in this like unique space of doing all of this and carrying all of that.
So, I walked into RCC knowing what RCC was. It's a white organization. And what I brought with me was me. And what I am is somebody that has been in this community for decades doing work. So RCC, just like I believe Leda said, or Nestic, needed me. I didn't need RCC. I actually had a fine job where, things are pretty not stressful. So me walking into RCC was, you need me to be there. Now, from there, the thing I do know is that I do know I actually can't do everything, which is why we're bringing in the Nina Collective. We're bringing in Freedom Inc. to do decolonization work in our space, because I can't do all of that work. First off, I'm unqualified. I mean, these are very specific qualifications. I know my qualifications. I know my bailiwick, and that is not it. I can do the things that I can do, but they need to come in and do some teaching for us. And the thing that I always tell my staff, I think, is, again, we only know so much. And we should always be open to learning, to decentering ourselves, decentering the ideas that we have had, because a lot of them are colonized ideas. So noting that that I am in a space that is traditionally white, I can bring my years of experience. But I also know that I need to bring other people in and pay them to do the work that yes, I can be a part of, but again, I can't do everything. I can't. It's untenable. And to raise up my staff of color to be able to do that work also. So, one of my favorite things is being able to mentor Shaquila, being able to mentor Maya and Courtney, and the Black women that are around me, not just at RCC, but in arts and in other arenas, taking these Black women and saying, all right, let's keep you close. Let's care for you. Let's figure out how to make you stronger so that you can continue that work. And I am grateful for the Black women that did that for me, the ones that I could look at. And, I look at people like Rita Adair, who was one of the first Black social workers that was a woman, that I was like, wait a second, she's saying things that are different. Listening to my father, who started some of the mental health programs here that were the first Black-led programs in Madison. So, taking all of the people around me and then mentoring those with me and making sure that I am also being uplifted and held and given education too, is how we are going to transform RCC. And I do need people to hear, we are going to transform RCC. It is going to be something different. It's not going to look how it looks now. That doesn't mean that we're still not going to give services. It just means how we encapsulate that will be different. And that is something that our entire organization is committed to, from the board to every person on staff. We are committed to making sure that what we do is different and that we are centering the people that need to be centered.
Thank you, Dana. I think you made a lot of valid points. And I think something we talked about before is just like the importance of like recognizing that bandwidth, because you can't, similar to what Laleda was talking about, do the anti-racism training and also supervise the whites in our organization. There's just not enough. That ain't gonna work. It won't work. And I think, to Laleda's point, something that I really appreciate about you, Dana, is that I have never been put in a situation where I have to then give critique on the whites who have disrespected me. Like that labor has not been put on me, because luckily I have supervisors, Dana, Missy, right, who pull that labor off of me and make sure that if something does happen, you give me the option of, do you want to say something, or do you want me to say something, or do you want to say something together? Which one works best for you? And I really hope that other white nonprofits really start picking up on that, because it should not be the labor of the one Black person you decided to hire to do all of the emotional anti-racism talking about Black people in their organization, because that's unfair labor. And to also, like Laleda's point, that's setting them up for failure. Because next thing you know, it's gonna have white Samantha crying in a meeting about how her feelings got hurt because Shaquila's Black ass cussed her out because she tried to touch my hair again. And it's just gonna be a mess, right?
And the fact of the matter is, white women have less to lose, right? Like, they just have less to lose in situations like this. Samantha can go and cry and still have her job tomorrow. Me, on the other hand, if this is a problem, is it that big of a problem, right, for me to go and say something to an HR or to, a supervisor? Because no matter what I talk about, or no matter how I feel, I'm still going to be viewed as the angry Black woman, right? And so, is it worth it? Like, we have to go through this tug and pull of, is it worth going to HR? Because if they're going to choose between myself and Samantha, who is crying, Shaquila's she's gonna get fired, right? And she could have been the one that was harmed. And so when we're in these spaces of, like you said, choosing between, do I go and talk to my supervisor? Do I talk with the supervisor? Do I feel like educating this white woman who did something harmful? We still have to, in the back of our minds, because the fact of the matter is rent still due on the 1st. Right? Whether my hair is straight or whether it's, big and puffy, and Samantha did touch my hair, she did harm me, right? Rent still due. not something that has to, that white women have to worry about, because again, they have less to lose. And so white women, if you are in these spaces, you need to be the one that's stepping up.
Yes. And I've taken away the power of the fear of being labeled the angry Black woman by just letting y'all know up front, I am an angry Black woman. And do you know I wear that badge with honor, because I got a lot to be angry with, because I don't just carry my anger, I carry the anger of my mama's 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 mama. I am angry. Yes, I am. And that there's no power anybody can have over me of labeling me as the angry Black woman. And so I definitely understand what you're saying, Nestic, too, because the reality is what is the reality at the same time. And sometimes it can be as harming to have to advocate for yourself as what was done to you. There's so much energy that comes. Dana had said something earlier about a daily basis. On a daily basis, I am facing not just microaggressions, I'm facing macro aggressions. And I have to decide on a daily basis, am I going to say something about this? Am I going to deal with this? Because sometimes it makes me feel better if I deal with it. Sometimes it makes me feel better if I don't. So it's all these choices all the time that are having to be made, which pulls back in the importance of taking self-care, taking that time so that I can replenish myself. And so I'm gonna say to someone who shall not be named on this call, if you have more than 30 hours of time in your extra time that you've worked that you need to take, that's like, don't even let it get to 100 and some hours. You know what I'm saying? When you had 30 hours that you've worked over and above your time, it's time for me to take a break. It's time for me to take a break. I've accrued all this extra time because I'm doing extra stuff. Don't let it get to 100. Don't let it get to 50.
Well, since you ain't gonna say the name, but later I will. Dana, beautiful Pelabon, please take some time off.
I was talking about you.
I was about to say, you just as bad as me, so I don't want to hear it from you.
This panel ain't got nothing to do with me.
Listen, we are in front of company. We are in front of company.
We are a compromised company, y'all. Relax, calm down.
I already told you I'm an angry Black woman, so I don't care. I'll take it all. Take your time, girl.
That's funny.
Yeah, you gotta be so loud. Relax.
That's so funny. I love us. For no reason. Just love us for no reason. Just cause. You can't sit on another panel like this and just be Black. Right? Like I love us.
I can't hold my Black back no more.
And don't, as the kids say, and don't.
I'm Black, y'all. I'm Black.
Everywhere, all the time. All the time.
Yes.
I love you guys. And I
Absolutely.
love this beautiful space we just curated. And I am feeling so uplifted and so inspired to continue to take respite, to take care of myself, and to center myself. I think a lot of times we're waiting, like you said earlier, we're waiting for other people to give us permission to do anything. And I think one thing I really pulled from you is you don't need people's permission to take care of yourself. I needed permission for Dana to take time off, hopefully in March, putting that in. But you don't need to keep waiting for people to tell you that you need to do something for yourself. And so I really appreciated that, even though I didn't want to hear it. So with the 5 minutes that we do have left, I wondered if you guys had any final words that you kind of want to leave the panel with.
I'll go first because I literally got to get to another meeting in 5 minutes. So I just want to say that I stand on the shoulders of some amazing Black women who came before me. I know that the program that I work for has harmed and probably will continue to harm Black women, but not if I have something to do with it. But we have a history of harming Black women. And I stand on the shoulders of those amazing Black women. They left the door open for me, and I'm trying to leave the door open for somebody else. And so on this YouTube, Facebook Live, I just want everybody to know that I stand on the shoulders of Laleda G. Because she was one of my group leaders who I was rolling my neck, but I learned how to be Black, and I learned how to be unapologetically Black in spaces where where Black women don't have the luxury of just being Black, but I learned how to be Black from being around Black women like Laleda G. And so I just need you to know that I stand on your shoulders. I know that they harmed you and they owe you some coins and they owe you an apology and all of these things. And so I'm just grateful to be able to come after women like you and Anika and, you know, all of the women who are doing this work. I look forward to continue working with you all, and I'm just gonna be Black all the time, all the time.
Reparations for Laleda. Let's start.
Absolutely. We need a GoFundMe or something. Like, this is not a game.
Laleda has a Patreon. I am a patron member. Y'all need to pay her just to exist. Just to exist.
This is not a game. This is not like legit not a game. Not a game. And I need her to know that I'm getting all the neck rolls back, like 100-fold from my girls groups. And I'll be teaching them how to be Black. And I'm like, dang, I need to apologize to Laleda, Anetta, Belinda, and Kai Kelmise. Like, I need Kelmise Walker. I need to apologize for rolling my neck at y'all all the time and thinking that I was just a little nappy head Black girl with a ponytail to the side. Like, I'm getting it back 100-fold from 100.
Girl, you were a lovely girl. I don't know what you're talking about. And I thank you for those life-giving words. No,
you gave me life.
You were always wonderful.
Thank you. I love y'all. Please contact me for whatever. I will do stuff for free for y'all, but not nobody else. I love y'all. Thank y'all so much. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you,
Love
Nessa.
you, girl.
Laleda, did you want to leave any final words?
Yeah, I'm thankful for you and Dana and the work that you were doing, and for Nestic, you know, because I had really sworn off working with said organizations because it had done so much harm, and just so much harm. And so I said yes to doing this because of where you all are and what you're doing, and wanting to believe in the tomorrow that you all are creating. So I thank you, you like Nestic, who are doing the work from the inside and having the strength and the courage to do that, and continue just to lift up the idea that we must defend Black girls and keep girls on our radar. And I asked first for Black women to do that, because we were Black girls and we understand what that really means. And then I asked for the community around us to understand what it means to defend Black girlhood. And I invite people to listen to my podcast by that same name to really get an understanding about why this is an issue and why it's so important. And so thank you all so much for having me as a part of this forum today.
I'm like choked up. And I know looking at Dana's face, she is too. And so I was going to ask Dana why you are, but I'm going to let you gather yourself and say, I'm choked up because, I mean, I told you, like, I look at you, Laleda, and I see everything that I would want to be in this field. And I look at you too, Dana, and I was so nervous about hosting this panel because I admire you guys so much. Admire your work, admire your wisdom. And I'm like, please like me. please like me. And I just respect so much. And I know how much harm has been done to you from RCC specifically. And I don't know if RCC will ever say a big formal apology, but I really appreciate you looking at me, a little Black girl from Chicago living in Madison, trying to do this work and do it right, and at least trusting me to do this panel and do it with me and partner with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I just want to end on the great respect that we all have for you. You are, and pardon me for being choked up, you are the beacon. And I don't want you to ever think at any point in time that you are not respected, that you are not trusted, that you are not uplifted and upheld in everything that we think about and do. Truly, everything that we think about and do. So, thank you for being a part of what it is that Shaquila came up with, and I will make sure for the rest of my tenure at RCC to make up to you any harm that's been done, because you deserve that. You deserve that respect.
Y'all gonna make me cry on this video. Thank you so much for those words. Thank you.
Now we all gonna cry.
Yeah. I was really struggling because I had therapy before this, so I'm like, ooh, hopefully I don't cry before therapy. Now I'm about to get ready to cry. I just did my makeup, so this can't be happening.
Thank you so much.
But yeah, I think there's beauty in crying, and I think there's beauty in seeing Black women in a space like this and uplifting each other, because like we've been talking about, right? Black women gonna have to uphold ourselves and hold each other and hold space for each other. And I just really am happy to be in a space with y'all. Like I said, I love y'all so much, and I appreciate all of the guidance, the wisdom, the the accountability, I guess, or whatever the way that we just try to do. I really appreciate that so much, and I appreciate you guys doing this panel. So, with that being said, we are over time, as we always are as a people. And so I just really wanted to close out with Pay a Black Woman. Please visit Lolita's website. Please visit Dana's information, Nestic's information, and support the work that they're doing, because they are doing such phenomenal, amazing work in this community. And holding such great spaces for people like me and Courtney and Maya and all other smaller little Black girls who are in this space of wanting to create revolution and liberation, to be able to do this work. And we can't do that. Like Dana, I can't do my job without you being at RCC. And I know I joke around and saying, like, if you leave, I'm coming with you, but I'm dead ass. You can't leave me at RCC by myself. I need you because you keep me grounded and keep me sane. And so with that, thank you guys. And also tune in for the second panel we'll be having later on this month, with Dana and Nestic again, and some fellow white advocates to have a further conversation about what we can do to move forward and bridge gaps between what has happened in the past, what's happening now, and how to move forward together as a collective.